I think, first of all, hopefully schools are set up so the online distance learning is set up so that kids are doing calisthenics, doing exercise and taking breaks during the day, that they're doing reflective writing where they're still maybe on the screen, or hopefully older kids get to go off screen and then reflect back, because it's torture for kids to be on screens all day, and especially looking at themselves all day just creates all sorts of stress. And then think about what their life would be like if this weren't happening. After school, do they have to practice piano, or do they have a play date, or do they do dance class, or do they just run around the neighborhood and the building or whatever? And then, let them have that same kind of time as much as you can. So if it would be a play date, you need to let your kids socialize. But if they're talking, that's different from talking and being on YouTube together and texting. So one of the things you want to do is, if they are socializing, try and let it be like just on one device, because then they're not doing that split screen, bad for their little attention thing. So there's so many apps that you can play games now with your friends online. And that's a great thing. Play a slow game online with a friend or a grandparent. Caribou is an app that lets, grandparents play games with little people. That's really fun on a device. So you can read together, you can play tic-tac-toe or whatever it is. So I think we want to create the same kind of afternoons, if you will, that we used to have, understanding that it will be probably, some of it will certainly be tech mediated. I think that as long as your children are still, and I know this just seems like so old-fashioned, but reading for pleasure, and that's something as parents you can require, and they're cooking with you, and they're playing, making a mess with your cushions and building forts and doing all that stuff indoors. It's not nearly as much fun as outdoors. I think, don't get too frantic. Hopefully this will not last forever. It feels like it's already lasted forever. I mean, originally thought this would just be 2 months, at least in the States. We thought, we can get through this. No, it's going to be much longer. But, developmentally and socially, this is such a hard challenge. I think what you want to do, if at all possible, is to take their learning offline and do it in the time you have with them, maybe at the end of your day, and go over it with them. So it feels more connected to you. It feels more personal to them. And they can, if they're studying, I don't know what your 6-year-old is learning, but if you can take it offline, print out whatever worksheets or whatever, there is, and make it fun, and let her or him do it as if it were a real school, not on a screen. And as children get older, whatever they're reading or studying, if you can help them do it in a way that feels more personally meaningful to them. Like if they're learning math and at home you're cooking, do the math equations in the context of cooking. If they're learning about science, try and bring the science into your kitchen in some way. Don't feel like the only way they will learn the lesson at hand or the concept at hand, multiplication or whatever it is. We've got 2 eggs, and now we've got 4 eggs. Now we've got 6 eggs because there are like 12 of us here. How are we going to feed everybody? What do we have to do to get the right recipe number? So what I'm trying to say is the through line of what children learn in school usually apply to everyday life. And the challenge is to take the essence of what the lesson is and bring it home. So you're teaching them it as you go through your day. And don't think that the only way they are going to learn and keep up is trying to get it in 20-minute segments on a screen, because that is really hard. And the other thing we know from Montessori or Reggiano learning is that really the best way kids learn anything is project-based learning. So the more you can create a project around the theme or the issue or the content, the more likely they are to learn. Again, it just requires you to have the presence of mind, and your own mental, focus to be a teacher at home after you've been a worker at home all day, which is exhausting. Balance, it seems mythic. It's not a realistic expectation. And so much depends on where you are in the hierarchy of your job. So if you have no autonomy in your job and you have to answer to your boss and your family depends on the income from your job, you have to make your job your priority because you can't not work and show up to the minimum, at least, that you're required to do. And if those are your circumstances, I would say trust your kids will catch up. But don't put your family's food and housing and safety on the line. And that's a horrible choice to have to make, but it's real. And then the whole concept of balance for people who do have a little bit more autonomy in their work is certainly, and if any CEOs are listening to this or managers are listening to this, please eliminate the unessential meetings, the extra work. Please don't do merit-based, raises, because we have to, in a way we never have before, take into consideration the circumstances of every individual's living situation. When you've got elderly sick people at home, when you've got a vulnerable immune system, whatever it is, you've got children at home. So, my plea really goes out to the bosses here, and to really be sympathetic and decide what's the minimum we need to do to keep going forward, to give our employees a break. That said, the whole concept in America, we talk about self-care, and taking care of yourself. And it's really clear that certain forms of self-care are better than others. Practicing meditation is definitely better than drinking alcohol. And the whole concept of self-care, people can get very cynical about it, but honestly, the more you can practice anti-anxiety approaches right now, whether it's cognitive behavioral therapy or mindfulness practices, listen to Calm or Headspace if you don't have a practice of your own. Certainly try, and if it's safe, get outside every day. Nature heals the brain, So I think balance is a lovely idea. For most people, it's not attainable. I think what you really want to look at is if you're losing it. If you are irritable, angry, out of control emotionally, then you need to pull over and get some help self-regulating for yourself. Because your children need you to remain, hard as it is, relatively calm, not reactive, and optimistic. And that should be the priority. The level of tension in the home and the level of predictability and calm for children should be what you look at.